Well, well, well. Fancy seeing you all here. We're back. Transcendent by Lisa Beeson. Chapter 18. Dun dun dun. Dun dun dun. We just left off. Ari is now leaving the Lennox house because she got a mysterious message in the mail that they're coming and she needs to leave. So now she's left and she's on the bus. No, she's on the train headed to Chicago. Chapter 18. Chicago was the biggest city Ari had ever been to. The tall buildings nearly blocked out the sun on some streets. She found an Apple store and was able to charge her iPod and use one of their floor model computers to look at a map of the city. She quickly memorized the places on the map she wanted to go and then logged off the computer. After buying breakfast on the train and the day pass for the L train she'd bought earlier, she was running low on cash. So she figured she'd head over to Grant Park to find a way to get more, wanting to hold on to Ruby's watch as long as she could. It was a nice Fossil brand watch, and she would probably get at least $10, but a kid pawning a watch would raise all kinds of red flags. She decided to see if she could find a street performer that wouldn't mind her joining in to boost up donations a bit, like she had with Walter. Leaving the store, she made sure to put on her sunglasses, and she went to get on a train that would take her towards Grant Park. She hadn't seen any signs of the suits, shades, or even progeny since she arrived, but she still kept an eye out. There were so many people in the city that it was hard to pinpoint individual ones. No one paid much attention to her. She looked like any other teen on the train, with her glasses on and earbuds in. She tried to look as vacant and uninterested as the rest of them, while also keeping an eye on everyone around her. Her hair had grown out some since Mandy had cut it. The short side was getting shaggy, covering her ear and reaching down to her jaw, and her long bangs were now just past her chin. But looking around, it didn't look any worse than the other teens she saw. Getting off the train, she made her way to Grant Park, scanning for potential collaborators. She saw some on her way, but she could tell by tuning into their intentions that they wouldn't be too partial to sharing their profits, so she moved on. With her stomach starting to cramp up from lack of food, she needed to find someone soon. It wasn't until she walked past Buckingham Fountain and across the road that she saw a street musician she could work with. He was a white guy with a head full of dreadlocks who seemed pretty laid back and good-natured. He was strumming away on his guitar, just wrapping up a Bob Marley song. He was a decent player, and he had a nice smile and a twinkle in his eye that made him a natural flirt. People would walk by, smile back, and drop a few coins into a bucket he had by his feet. Ari knew she could help him out, and in turn help herself out. She just had to try not to amp up anyone and draw unwanted attention towards herself. She was only planning on harmonizing with him. Kid acts always got more money than ones with only adults. He was starting to play a Jason Mraz song that Ari had always liked, called I'm Yours. It was perfect for harmonizing. He was sitting on some stairs behind a giant bronze sculpture of a Native American riding a horse. Ari nonchalantly eased her way over to where he was and sat a couple of stairs behind him. When he got to the chorus, she took a deep breath and thought, "Here goes nothing." Singing along, she eased herself in, and as her confidence grew and she got into the song, she began singing louder. Their voices melded perfectly together, and their sound was sweet and mellow. When he heard her singing along and the effect their voices had on each other, he snapped his head around to see who was singing with him. His eyebrows rose in surprise when he saw Ari, but instead of telling her to shove off, he just smiled and nodded, motioning for her to come sit by him with a jerk of his head. She scooted over to him just at the right time in the song, and they sang the next verse together. His smile was contagious, and she could feel the joy of the song bubble up inside her and overflow. They matched each other in pitch and rhythm, like they were on their very own frequency, in tune with each other perfectly. People started to stop and listen, feeling that undeniable pull of the joyful music. The more Ari sang, she started to feel the pain and sadness of leaving Adam and Jamie begin to float away with the notes of the song. The street musician was enjoying himself as well, smiling and playing better than he ever had before. The bucket was starting to fill up quickly with the generosity of the people listening to them perform. Ari was so caught up in the music that she hadn't noticed the effect she was having on the people around her. When they finished the song, he went straight into another one, and Ari didn't hesitate, joining along. And that was actually the end of chapter 18. It was just a couple short pages there. Blurp, blurp. So, we're going to go straight into chapter 19. Ooh. Chapter 19. Oh, wait, a little swig of the water. Chapter 19. Cam liked to go to the park in the afternoons. It was a perfect place to practice his parkour stunts, like jumping and flipping over benches, doing handstands on rails, and vaulting over various obstacles. Like any normal 16-year-old boy, he also liked to scope out the pretty joggers as they ran by the waterfront. But unlike any other normal boy, he could scope out the woman from a mile away using only his eyes. That's why he was called Cam, because his eyes could zoom in and focus on things very far away, like a camera lens. When he was younger, the kids never believed him when he said he could see things really far away. He always felt like that old Dr. Seuss book about the bear and the rabbit bragging about how far they could see. But to him it wasn't bragging, it was the truth. So he quit telling people and kept his ability to himself. Hey, no. Santa, Romeo. Santa. Thank you. They're both crushing on Kamikaze. So he quit telling people and kept his ability to himself. When he was done checking out the jogger babes, he noticed a group of teenage girls who, about to take a photo, were sitting on the edge of the fountain. Cam had a devilish streak, and the temptation was just too great. He casually trotted over to the group of girls, who had now roped a tourist into taking their picture. Oh, I think this truck's about to get loud. Perhaps we wait for one moment. Ooh, why is this having trouble? Well, hello there. Okay. Just as the tourist was finishing counting down to take the picture, Cam ran up, flipped sideways while making a silly face over the group of smiling girls. He landed softly on his feet and continued jogging away. He laughed and blew a kiss over his shoulder as he heard squeals of surprise and outrage calling after him. He hoped the picture would go viral. He was wearing a t-shirt from the shop, and since any publicity was good publicity, he knew Hawk would appreciate the exposure. As Cam ran off, he fully intended to go straight back to the shop, but then he heard the music. It was coming from behind the statue of the bowman. It was like nothing he'd ever heard before. The girl's voice was amazing. Man, if Adele, Nora Jones, and an angel had a music baby, that baby would be this girl's voice. Even though she had the talent to easily overpower the poor schmuck she was singing with, she didn't. She made sure that she complimented and enhanced his voice, to the point where even he sounded amazing. Cam had seen that guy around, and he wasn't anything special. The music drew him in and he wanted to hear more. As he kept walking, he zoomed his As he kept walking, he zoomed in his vision on the girl. He usually didn't focus in on stuff while he was moving, because it made it hard for him to see what was right in front of him. But this girl was special. He could feel it in his bones. And over the years, he had learned to trust that feeling. There was a big crowd around them, but the girl seemed oblivious. She was totally in the moment, looking only at the schmuck she was singing with. At least that's what it looked like. He couldn't tell with those sunglasses she had on. As he got closer, his supernatural sight became even more potent. He could see almost every particle in the air, even the individual pores on people's skin. Textures were enhanced and everything was crystal clear. But most amazing of all was that he could actually see through the walls of the buildings around him. It was kind of like those old hologram postcards where the pictures changed depending on the angle you looked at them. He tilted his head one way, and it was a solid wall. When he tilted it the other way, he was looking through the wall at the people inside. This is unbelievable! I'm a freaking superhero! He knew it was somehow coming from the girl. He could feel it. Like the static energy your hands feel when you put it on one of those plasma globes they have at the science museums. The static energy was flowing off of her towards him. He had no idea how she was doing it, but it was spectacular. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. Everything was as it was before. No more crystal clarity and no more X-ray vision. Bummer. Cam noticed that the schmuck with the dreadlocks and the girl had stopped singing. The crowds of people around them were practically dumping out their wallets into the guy's tip bucket. They started filing away. The spell seemed to be broken, and they were continuing on with their lives. Now the girl was standing up and talking with Mr. Dreadlocks. Cam couldn't hear what they were saying since he was too far away, but he was getting the gist of the conversation. Mr. Dreadlocks was shoving the bucket at her, insisting she take it, but the girl seemed to be refusing, shaking her head in protest. Take it, you idiot! He wouldn't have gotten half. He would never have gotten all that without you. Heck, if it had been anyone else, they would have just kept it and not even offered it to you. She finally relented and accepted half of what was in the bucket, which was still a substantial sum. She straightened out the bills, rolled them up, and put them in the front pocket of her backpack. Ugh, this kid is hopeless. That money will be taken by sticky fingers in no time. She needs someone to show her the way. He could tell she was a runaway, but she was too clean to have been one for long. The streets were no place for a kid like that. He would have to take her under his wing and keep her safe. And it certainly didn't hurt that she could give him superpowers as well. She put her backpack on and hugged the dreadlocked hippie. Ugh, gross. You know that guy's got to smell like unwashed hair and body funk. Letting go, she practically jogged away down the street. Curious, Cam followed her for a couple blocks until she ducked into the Harold Washington Library. Aw, man, that place is huge! As soon as the girl went through the doors, Cam raced to catch up, so she didn't get too much of a head start. He burst through the front doors, looking around for any sign of her. The place was even bigger than he thought. How am I going to find her now? He jogged over to the escalators, and that's when he saw her ascending to the upper levels. He hopped up a couple steps at a time to catch up. He could have gone up faster by climbing up the rails, but he didn't want to draw attention of security guards stationed all over the place. When he got up to the 4th floor, he quickly scanned the stacks. He saw that she wasn't there, so he loped up to the next floor, and then to the next. Nothing. As he got back on the escalators, he spied her getting off on the 7th floor. Aha! There you are! Leaping up the moving stairs, he got to the top just in time to see her sneak into an aisle of books in the language section. He went into the adjacent aisle, quietly trying to sneak a look at her through the books. He heard her stop and pull out one of the books from the other side. Not thinking too much about it, he stopped where he thought she was and tried to see her through the gaps in the books. Before he knew what was happening, the spine of the book in front of him shot out and smashed him right in the nose. A blinding burst of pain shot through his face. "Ah, sweet baby Jesus," he said through gritted teeth, holding his face. The girl came around the end of the aisle, staring him down, and putting her hands on her hips, trying to look intimidating. He would have laughed if his nose didn't hurt so badly. This kid was about as intimidating as a growling puppy. She had taken off her sunglasses, and now he could see her crystal blue eyes. He had pegged her for Latin American, or maybe Indian, but now he wasn't so sure. All he knew was that she had the soft features of a kid who'd been sheltered all her life. Not exactly the quality you need to be a successful street kid. She needed him. Ugh. Hold on. Throat's like closing up there. Maybe I'll try this one. Might be a little cooler. Pretty much exactly the same temperature. Ari hadn't meant to hit him that hard, but she couldn't back down now and show weakness. He was at least 5 or 6 inches taller than her, and he was lean like an athlete. His hair was long and shaggy and reached down to the bottom of his neck. It was a dark chocolate brown, which matched the color of his slightly Asiatic-shaped eyes. He was as bright as the last progeny she ran into back at that barbecue restaurant, maybe even a bit brighter. She had noticed him while giving Travis, the street performer, a hug of thanks. She figured that she must have gotten carried away while they were singing, and amped the kid as he passed by. He had been across the street, but she could tell he was staring at her. She had tried to lose him, but now that he stood here in front of her, she knew that he didn't mean her any harm. However, he was still sneaking around and following her. "Why are you chasing me?" "What? I think you broke my nose. Am I bleeding?" He took his hands away and lifted his head for her to see if there was any blood. "No, you're not bleeding, you big baby. I didn't hit you that hard. Now out with it. Why are you chasing me?" He tenderly rubbed the end of his nose. "I'm not chasing you. Well, not in a creeper kind of way," he said and shrugged his shoulders. You looked like you could use my help. That's all." "What do you mean by that? I'm doing just fine," she said, thinking about the money she just earned from singing. "I could spot a street kid from a mile away, and that wad of cash Hippie Longstockings just gave you won't be yours for very long, especially if you keep it in the front pocket of that backpack. Trust me, there are a lot of skeevy people out here in the city." "Hippie Longstockings?" she asked, trying to hold back a laugh. "Yeah, you know, that white Bob Marley-looking guy you were jamming with. You got a nice set of pipes, by the way. You should have taken all the cash. He wouldn't have gotten any of that without you." Ari knew that the boy was right, but she didn't feel right taking all the money. Travis was street performing for a reason. "His name is Travis, and he needed that money too. And just so you know, I can take care of myself. I don't need your help." "Of course you do," he said with a confident smirk. "No thanks, I'll pass," she said as she started to walk away. "Wait!" he called as he loped after her, his long legs letting him catch up to her in only a couple strides. A lady shushed him from one of the work tables. Ari glared up at him. "You're going to get us kicked out. Now leave me alone," she said in a harsh whisper. "Take a hint, guy." "Look, we got off on the wrong foot. Let's start over." He held out his hands. His hand, singular. "Hi, I'm Cam. And you are..." She paused, looked into his eyes, and knew that he genuinely wanted to help her out. With a sigh of resignation, she reluctantly shook his hand. "I'm Ari." "Hello, Ari. The city at night is not a safe place for a young girl like you. Where were you planning on sleeping tonight?" She hadn't thought that far ahead yet. She was too preoccupied with trying to figure out a way to eat. Just the thought of food made her stomach growl. The embarrassing sound made Cam smile. That's what I thought. Come on, Pipes. I'll take you to a guy that has the best food truck in town. Then I'll hook you up with a place to stay. Ari was too hungry to argue, and she got a good vibe from the kid. So she followed him back through the library to the front entrance. When they got back outside on the street, Ari asked, "How did you know I was a street kid?" He glanced over at her as he led them towards the L train. "Because I used to be one," he said with a smirk. "I know the look of hungry and desperate kid. But now that I'm gainfully employed, I have a full belly and a roof over my head." Ari looked at him warily. "So is this like an Oliver Twist kind of thing? Are you the Artful Dodger taking me to some guy named Fagin so I can become a pickpocket?" Cam laughed. "Nothing as nefarious as that, Pipes. Besides, the Artful Dodger ain't got nothing on me." Just as they were about to go down the stairs leading to the L train, Cam ran up the wall they were walking beside and did a backflip. He landed softly on his feet and stood up straight, holding his arms out like a gymnast at the end of a routine. "Impressive, but it still doesn't tell me what you do," Ari said, and started walking down the stairs. "Sure it does," he said, jogging down the stairs after her. "I do amazing parkour stunts while wearing my boss's gear. You know, for publicity." "What's parkour?" He stopped and gave her a wounded look. "What's parkour? Oh, you're killing me, Pipes." They got on the train heading north and sat down. "It's also called free running. It's getting from point A to point B in the most efficient way possible. I use my body and the stuff around me to propel myself from one place to another while keeping up momentum. It's a total rush." "And you get paid to do this?" "Yep," he said, sitting up straight and pointing to the logo on the front of his shirt. "PK Hawks, Sports Store and Gym." That's the logo of an eagle, or a hawk. Oy. Hawk pays me and my buddies to wear stuff from his store. We strap on bird masks with cameras on them and record each other doing mind-blowing stunts. We call ourselves the Flock. We're pretty much YouTube celebrities, he said, beaming with pride. "Why the masks?" "Mostly because Hawk pays us under the table for the videos, and a couple of us are self-emancipated and don't want the Department of Child Services on our butts." They got off the train and went up the stairs to the street above. "Self-emancipated. Is that another way of saying runaway?" Cam turned around and shushed her. "That is a dirty, dirty word, Pipes. Self-emancipated sounds more dignified," he said in a pseudo-serious tone. They turned the corner and Ari was hit with the most amazing smells, making her mouth water. Parked all down the road was food truck after food truck. "You like empanadas, right?" Cam asked as he led her down the row of trucks. Ari nodded her head. Just about anything sounded good now. "Good, because this guy is the maestro of empanadas. I like to call him Chester, because he kind of looks like Chester Cheetah from those Cheetos commercials." Cam led her to a red food truck called Papa's Empanadas, and she had to fight back a laugh, because the guy really did look like Chester Cheetah. He had the bushy white mustache and goatee, dark sunglasses, and everything. "Chester, my man! Can I get 2 meat and cheeses and 2 bottles of water for my friend and I, please?" The guy gave him a wary look. "2 con quesos coming up. And I told you, kid, my name's not Chester, it's Miguel." He wrapped the pastries in wax paper and handed them to Ari and Cam. Then he got 2 bottles of water and placed them on the ledge under the window. "That'll be $12.50. They both put their food down and reached for their money. "Don't bother, I got this," Cam said while he unzipped the pocket on his athletic shorts. He saw her look down. The zippers were my idea. My stuff kept falling out of my pockets while I was doing stunts, so I told Hawk to put these babies on there. I'm pretty much a fashion genius. He grinned and pulled out his wallet. Cam's sense of humor was starting to grow on Ari. He had a twinkle in his eye and an impish grin that let him get away with almost anything. But she was perfectly capable of paying for her own food, so she continued to reach for her money. I said I got this, Cam insisted. But shut your stupid face pipes. I'm being a gentleman. Santa, please be a gentleman. Romeo, yeah, backup offer. My throat just is closing up. Ari closed her mouth and slung her backpack back around as she tried not to laugh at his contradiction. Kids these days, Cam said dramatically as he shook his head and handed Miguel the money. You know what I'm talking about, huh, Chess? Miguel took his money and turned around without a word. Cam grabbed his stuff and turned to Ari. He knows what I'm talking about. Ari smiled, despite herself, and joined Cam at one of the small fold-out tables for the food truck patrons. She drank half her water, then downed her empanada in about 10 seconds flat. Cam sat... I thought I heard something weird. Cam sat there with his eyebrows raised. And I thought that I ate fast. Ari held up her finger, telling him to wait a minute. Then she got up and bought another carne con queso. I know I can say that better. Then she got up and bought another carne con queso from Miguel. She sat back down and tried to eat slower so she could prolong the savory deliciousness. These things are heavenly, she mumbled around a mouthful. I told you, he said, as he pulled back the top longer pieces of his hair into a half ponytail. The way he did it, without pulling the ends all the way through the hair tie, made him look like a modern-day samurai. Then he dug into his own pastry. I found this guy a couple months ago, and I haven't gone anywhere else since. The stuff's like crack. Romeo, are you near her? Okay, you're good. Santa? Okay, you're back. Crisis averted. Ari finished off her second pastry and then gulped down the rest of her water. She could have eaten more, but she wanted to save her money. She sat back, waiting for Cam to finish. Cam took his last bite and then licked the tips of his fingers. Your eyes are like crazy blue. Are you a mutt like me? Excuse me? A mutt? She asked, taken aback. She wasn't sure if she should be offended or not, before self-consciously putting her sunglasses back on. Cam innocently shrugged his shoulders. You know, a mutt. Practically everyone is nowadays. Take me, for example. My dad's half Japanese and half Irish, and my mom was a mixed bag of German, French, and Italian. Your mom was? Ari asked sympathetically, picking up on his nuance. Taking a sip of water, he looked off down the street. Yeah, she died when I was 8. It was a bad winter. She slipped on some black ice while walking into work. She hit her head pretty bad and died at the hospital from a brain hemorrhage. My dad had skipped town before I was born, so that's when I came to Illinois to live with my Grams. Ari felt bad that she brought it up. I'm sorry, that's awful. He gave a fatalistic shrug of his shoulders. Life's full of meetings and partings. That's the way of it. Ari looked at him in surprise. Hey, that's a quote from A Christmas Carol. You read Dickens? I take offense to your astonished tone, young lady. But no, I don't. I got it from the movie version. Grams and I would watch it every Christmas. She had a thing for George C. Scott, he said with a smirk. Anyway, back to you. What kind of mutt are you? Ari shifted in her seat. I don't know. No one knows who my birth parents are. Cam leaned forward. Ooh, Pipes has a mysterious past, he said, twirling an imaginary mustache between his fingers. Why do you keep calling me Pipes? He held up his pointer finger. First rule of street kid code. Never talk about street kid code. Ari rolled her eyes. Then Cam held up a second finger. Second rule of street kid code. Never go by your real name. It helps with deniability for all parties involved. So, Cam isn't your real name? Nope. He leaned back in his chair and laced his fingers behind his head. In fact, my friends call me Eagle Eye Cam. Ari smirked skeptically. Really? Well, no, but they should. Ari laughed. So why do you go by Cam? He brought his hands back down to the table and leaned in conspiratorially. Because my eyes can zoom in on things really far away, like the lens of a camera. He looked at Ari intently, trying to see if she believed him or not. So that's what his ability is. Since she didn't call him out on it, he went on. The kids at school didn't believe me, but it's the truth. The optometrist was stumped. He said that I must have overdeveloped corneas or something. Speaking of which, he said, giving a meaningful pause as he stared her down, let's talk about the gigantic elephant in the room. Oh, geez, here it comes. What are you talking about? Ari asked innocently. Come on, you know what I'm talking about. He leaned in closer and whispered, how were you able to make me see through walls like frickin' Superman? Holy crap, I made him see through walls? Ari cleared her throat, feeling uncomfortable. Look, I can't do it again, if that's what you're after. I have no control over it. It sort of just happens. But what is it, exactly? Cam asked, intrigued. Ari pushed back her chair. I should really get going. Thanks for the food. She quickly stood up and started to walk away. Cam scrambled up after her. Whoa, pump the brakes, he said as he jogged up beside her. Hey, if you can't do it again, that's fine with me. Once was cool enough to last a lifetime. I was just curious. Ari kept walking, looking straight ahead. Cam, you're a cool guy and all, but you're putting yourself in danger by just being around me. What's this now? He jogged in front of her, blocking her way. Talk to me, Pipes. What's up? What kind of danger are we talking about here? He asked, concerned. Don't worry about it, Ari mumbled, walking faster. Undeterred, Cam sped up as well. Look, I know what it's like to feel isolated by a secret ability. And after what happened this afternoon, I'll believe anything you say. I promise. He looked down at her with his eyes full of sincerity. She wanted to believe him, but she'd already put too many of her friends in danger. Let me help you, Pipes, he pleaded. Come on, you can tell me everything on the way to the shop. He did have a right to know what he really was, since it was obvious he had no clue, and she did need a place to crash for the night. Ari let out a deep sigh. All right, fine. As they walked, she told him about her own special sight and how she can affect radiant energy. Then she went into how she can boost the abilities of progenies. She then explained what progenies were and how he was one. That led into who the suits were and how they snatch up the progenies they think will be useful. When she finished talking, he stopped and stood still, making the flow of pedestrians go around them. So you're telling me I'm a descendant of gods? Ha ha! Yes! I always knew I was awesome, but not this awesome. I'm like Hercules or something, he said with a big grin on his face. Yeah, or something. Ari stared at him incredulously. Did you not hear the last part about the Psycho Squad chasing after people with abilities like ours? Cam waved a dismissive hand. Yeah, I can handle those chumps. But Pipes, he said, shaking her shoulders excitedly, I'm an effing superhero! Ari laughed. Don't get a big head or anything. Too late, he said with a smirk, and started walking again. They walked a couple more blocks until they came to a store with a sign that had the same logo as Cam's t-shirt. The automatic doors swished open, and a rush of cool air, conditioned air blasted her in the face. The place was well lit and chock full of shoes, clothes, and various athletic gear. The walls were covered with spectacular graffiti murals. Ari had to admit that the place seemed pretty cool. A beefy guy with tattoos, a scarlet mohawk, and the same shirt as Cam was restocking some shirts in the men's section off to the left. When he heard Ari and Cam come in, he turned around with an obligatory hospitality smile plastered on his face. But when he saw Cam, the smile fell, and he gave a long-suffering sigh. There he is. It's about time you came back for your lunch break, Camel Toe. Now that your shift is almost over, Hawk's been looking for you. Cam put his hands around Ari's ears with mock indignation. Watch that filthy mouth of yours, Tank. We have a lady present. Tank looked her over. He didn't seem impressed. One moment. Okay, I'm back. We have a lady present. Tank looked her over. He didn't seem impressed. Whatever, commode face. Hawk's in his office. You better get back there before he fires your stupid ass, he said while crossing his fingers hopefully, like he wished it would really happen. Cam laughed good-naturedly. Not a chance, Tankosaurus. I'm Hawk's biggest cash cow. He'd never fire me, he said confidently. But I am going to give you points for knowing the word commode. You almost sounded clever. Do you have to break out the dictionary for that one? Tank responded by pantomiming cranking up his middle finger. Cam laughed and guided Ari towards the back of the store. Don't let his cute nicknames fool you, he said in a loud stage whisper. Deep down, he truly loves me. No, I don't. I hate you, and I hope you get fired, Tank called from the other side of the store. His words were mean, but there was no venom in them. They were just guys ribbing on each other. I love you too, Think Tank, Cam belted out before he dodged a flying shoe aimed for his head. Don't damage the merchandise, he warned, before grabbing Ari's arm and jogging away from any more projectile footwear. He led her to a hallway that had the words, to Jim, painted on the wall, with an arrow pointing forward. Don't you have to go see your boss? Ari asked. I will, but I wanted to show you the gym first. You're pretty athletic, right? You look athletic. Ari shrugged, saying, Yeah, I guess. I was on my school's dive team. Perfect, he said with a confident smile. He led her through the hallway past a window where she saw a guy seated at a counter behind a stack of folded towels, busy playing something on his phone. Hey, Rob, Cam said as they passed by. Hey, Cam, Rob answered without looking up from his phone. The hallway opened up to the gym. Welcome to PK Hawk's Parkour Gym. It didn't look like any gym Ari had seen before. The walls had a mural of the Chicago skyline, and various birds soaring over the buildings, and the large space was filled with hanging bars, wooden boxes, ropes, random climbing obstacles, and pits full of spongy foam blocks. It was like a giant playground for kids. There were a couple people on the apparatuses, swinging from bar to bar, doing flips off of wooden boxes and climbing up the rock walls in the back. It looked like so much fun. I can't believe you actually get paid to do this, she said. Cam smiled and nodded. Yep, but I don't just do it. I do it with a flair, he said with a jaunty tilt of his head. Okay, come on. I guess we better go see Hawk. You want me to see him with you? Cam nodded. He took the sunglasses off her face and stuck them on her head. Yep, I need to use those precious moments eyes and sweet southern accent of yours to soften him up, just in case I'm in real trouble. I don't have an accent, Ari said, confused. At least she didn't think she did. Her parents were northern transplants, so she didn't pick it up from them. Cam pinched his fingers together. You do. Just a little bit. Don't worry, it's not over the top or anything. Actually, it's kind of adorable. I guess I better get a handle on that, so people won't be able to guess where I came from. Ari sighed and shook her head, then followed Cam to Hawk's office. He knocked before opening the door, and they walked in. Hawk was sitting behind his desk, talking on the phone. When he saw Cam, Hawk held up one finger to tell him he'd only be 1 minute. Ari took that moment to look around. Hawk had a large L-shaped desk that held a computer and a whole mess of papers. Hung on the wall to the right were multiple monitors showing various security camera feeds from both inside and outside the building. One of the screens showed Tank in the store, helping a customer. He was being pleasant and courteous. Ari had to grin at the stark difference between now and how he treated Cam earlier. Then she glanced at Hawk, who was still talking on the phone. He looked like he was in his mid-40s. He was fit for his age, but the stress of owning a business had etched deep lines on his forehead and around his light brown eyes. He had dark hair, cut short, and a full beard with patches of gray running through it. Hawk hung up the phone and leaned back in his chair. "Glad you decided to show up, Cam," he said, then looked over at Ari. "Who's this?" Cam put a proprietorial arm around Ari's shoulders. "This, good sir, is my new protege. She needs a place to crash, so I brought her here." Hawk shrewdly looked her over. "How old are you?" Ari felt nervous, like she was in front of a judge who was about to decide her fate. I'm 13, sir." "Jesus, Cam, she's a baby. I'm not running an orphanage for stray kids here. I'm trying to run a legitimate business. You're only a couple years away from being a legal adult, so I can let that squeak by. But a kid her age will bring the cops down on my neck faster than you can say run away." "Give her a chance, Hawk. This kid's special. I can feel it in my bones. Besides, you decided to take a chance on a scrawny street kid a year ago. Now look what you've got." He spread out his arms and presented himself like a prize from a game show. Hawk smirked. "Yeah, look what I got. A smart-mouthed brat who's starting to be more trouble than he's worth." Cam looked wounded. "Aw, Hawk, you don't mean that. Just look at this face," he said while grabbing Ari's face with his right hand. "How can you say no to those big blue doe eyes?" Ari tried to look as pitiful as she could. Hawk scowled at her. She could tell he felt bad for her, but he also didn't want to get in trouble for harboring a runaway. A runaway. He rubbed his face with his hands, thinking it over. "I had wanted you in here, Cam, so I could tell you that Tally got a job as a stuntman in LA, and I need your help to find a replacement for him." "Well, that's perfect," Cam interjected, pointing emphatically at Ari. "An untested 13-year-old girl is not a replacement for someone as talented as Tally. Just give her a chance, Hawk. Let her run the gauntlet. I know she can do it. Besides, she can bring in the younger customers. Think about it. The younger the customer, the longer the patronage." Ari hid behind her poker face. She didn't like the sound of running the gauntlet, but she also needed a place to stay and to earn money. Hawk looked between Ari and Cam, mentally weighing the pros and cons. "Fine," he said, and then pointed at Cam. "Go prep her and make sure she's ready. You've got," he looked over at the clock on the wall, "45 minutes before she runs the gauntlet. Then, after she fails, you can go out and find a real replacement for Tally." Cam raised his arms in triumph. "You won't regret this, Hawk, I'm telling you." Already done with the conversation, Hawk turned to his computer. Yeah, just have her ready in 45 minutes. Cam grabbed Ari's shoulders and pushed her backwards out of the office. "Come on, Pipes, we gotta get you ready." He took her back to the store, to the women's section. "Pick out what you need, but quickly. 45 minutes is not a lot of time to make you an expert free runner. Ready? Go." Ari stood there uncertainly. Cam, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but there's no way I'm going to be able to pull this off. Cam shushed her. The gauntlet's not as violent as it sounds. It'll only maim you a little bit if you mess up. He ignored the horror on her face. Buck up, champ. We're superheroes, remember? No sweat. Ari wanted to scream at him that no, they most definitely were not superheroes, but he had already gone off to look at shoes. Hey, what size shoe do you wear? He asked over at the shoe section. With a long-suffering sigh, she told him what size she thought she might be now. And he ran off to the back to get some shoes. She was perusing the shorts rack, not sure what she was looking for when Tank came up beside her. What you looking for? Pipes, is it? He asked, sounding unsure. She laughed. It's Ari, actually. Cam just calls me Pipes because he heard me sing. Tank nodded. Yeah, he's weird like that, he said, looking in the direction Cam had run off. Are you looking for anything specific? Hawk wants me to run the gauntlet in about, she looked down at Ruby's watch, 40 minutes? But I have no idea what that is or what I'm supposed to be looking for. So yeah, I'm pretty much going to die. Tank let out a whistle. The gauntlet, huh? Ambitious. I'd actually like to see that. I might pop in and watch. He called out to a girl named Sarah who was behind the checkout counter. As she came over, he said, Sarah will hook you up with what you need. Good luck, Ari. Sarah quickly helped Ari pick out a pair of shorts, a tank top, and just as she was handing Ari a brightly colored pair of socks, Cam came out of the stockroom with about 5 boxes of shoes. Ari found a pair that fit best, and Cam rushed her over to the women's locker room to change. About 20 minutes into their 45 minutes, Cam had her in the gym and was teaching her different techniques for landing and propelling herself. She was a natural at most of it, but she did lack some upper body strength. Cam told her that running the gauntlet was just going through the advanced course from beginning to end, mastering every obstacle in the quickest amount of time possible. No big deal. You got this, he said, giving her a hearty pat on the back. Yeah, no big deal. I'll just probably break my arms, or my legs, or my neck, she sighed dispiritedly while looking at the course. I just hope it's a quick death. Cam just laughed. At 45 minutes on the dot, Hawk came into the gym with his arms crossed, looking skeptically at Ari. Could you look any judgier, Hawk? Sheesh. Okay, kid, let's get this over with. And just so you know, this gym is a run-at-your-own-risk kind of place, he said as he pointed to a sign on the wall. So if you hurt yourself, I claim no responsibility. Of course you don't. She looked back at Cam, who gave her an encouraging smile, and motioned for her to go to the beginning of the course. She took a few deep breaths and made her way over to the starting point. There was some fast beat music blaring. Blaring. Now this is a super long one. Good going. Why it keeps blurring out. It can't handle all this. No, it can't handle it. It's gotta blur and blur. She looked back at Cam, who gave her an encouraging smile and motioned for her to go to the beginning of the course. She took a few deep breaths and made her way over to the starting point. There was some fast beat music blaring over the speakers around the gym to help pump up the patrons. She tried to focus on the beat and the rhythm of the music while she planned out her best course of action. She noticed that the other people in the gym stopped what they were doing to stand by Cam and Hawk and watch her. She hated being the center of attention. Cam called out to her, "No pressure, but my whole reputation is riding on this, so don't suck." He smiled and gave her a thumbs up. Yeah, thanks, no pressure. Ari's heart was pounding against her rib cage, but she put all her energy into focusing on the course. Suddenly, the projected physics of what she had to do to get through the course appeared before her eyes, just like Jonas had done with the balls on the pool table back in Arkansas. This time, instead of seeing the cue ball's trajectory, she saw her own, It showed the exact angle she needed to hit certain obstacles, and how much energy she needed to expend, and the velocity with which she needed to propel herself over others. She didn't know how it was possible, but she had somehow learned how to use Jonas's ability. Since she was seeing things at his amplified state, she must be able to boost her own abilities as well. This is incredible. "I don't have all day, kid. Let's go," Hawk called out, and she snapped out of her thoughts. "Okay, I'm ready," she called back. She took a deep breath, then followed the path her mind projected in front of her, executing everything perfectly. She hit everything exactly how the math told her to. She used her momentum to jump from pedestal to pedestal, and she swung on and off the bars at just the right angles, landing softly like Cam had taught her. She even threw in some extra flips to add flair. The last obstacle was something called the warped wall. Cam had said that Hawk got the idea from a TV show. It was impossible to some, but Ari knew just how fast to run and at what angle to propel herself up to the top. As she grabbed the edge and pulled herself up, the place exploded with cheers. She stood up and nearly collapsed in relief. She had pulled it off. She was alive, and it was the most fun she'd had in a while. She had to admit, free running really did make her feel like a superhero. Everyone was cheering, except for Hawk, who was stoically standing there stroking his beard with dollar signs in his eyes. Even Tank was cheering, but no one was as excited as Cam. He was jumping up and down ecstatically, and she could hear him shouting, "I knew it! I knew it! The bones don't lie! She did it!" Ari was breathing heavily, but she silently thanked Adam for keeping her in shape over the past couple months. She climbed down the ladder on the back of the side of the wall, and when she was back down on the floor, Cam ran over, picked her up, and spun her around. "That's my little protege! That was extraordinary, Pipes! Full-grown men haven't been able to do that as well as you did. You're a natural." She couldn't believe what she had just done. Obstacle course, projected math equations, and all. She wondered if it was just a one-time thing, or if she was really capable of learning a progeny's abilities. Tank came up to congratulate her. He was followed by the rest of the people in the gym, even cell phone-obsessed Rob. Ari was glad that her dark complexion mostly hid her blushing face. She wasn't used to all this praise. Hawk made his way through the crowd, telling Ari to follow him to his office. "And Cam, go tell Leo to make another mask. We have a new member of the flock." Ari smiled, and Cam beamed from ear to ear. "I'm on it, Chief," he saluted. As he ran off, he mouthed the words, "I told you so," to Ari. Ari got her backpack from the locker room and then changed, then followed Hawk back to his office. He sat down in his desk chair and motioned for her to pull up one of the chairs against the wall. She pushed one over and sat across from him. He looked at her appraisingly. "Well, it looks like I underestimated you. That was really something back there." "Thank you, sir." He had a way of unnerving her, so she hid behind her poker face. "Now, I don't know your real name, and I don't want to know. The less I know about you, the better off I am." "I couldn't agree with you more, buddy." "The streets can be very ugly and dangerous for a young girl like you. I wouldn't feel right sending you back out there. I have a daughter of my own, so you hit my soft spot. I'm going to let you stay upstairs with Cam and Leo. They're good kids, so they won't give you any trouble." Ari smiled appreciatively. "Thank you, sir." He leaned in. "But let me be perfectly clear. If I get even an inkling of any cops sniffing around here, you're gone. Do you understand?" Ari nodded. "Yes, sir, I understand. But you don't have to worry. I won't be in Chicago for very long." "Well, let's not be hasty now. Cam was right. You'll bring in a lot of young customers with your skills. Not only will you bring in the young girls, but the young boys will see you, hey, and think that if a girl can do it, so could they." Ari didn't quite know how to take that last part, so she just kept quiet. "You're a cute kid and all, but you're going to have to cover that up when you put on one of my store shirts. You understand? Cam's family is all dead, so I don't have to worry about them coming after me. But you're a wild card, so we gotta keep you covered." Her heart stung for Cam, but she agreed with Hawk wholeheartedly. Ari didn't want her face all over the internet either. I'll be paying you under the table for each video we put out. You're too young to work in the store or the gym, so that'll have to do. Cam and Leo will show you how it's all done. And when your mask is ready, you can go out and make your debut. He dug around in his file cabinet and brought out some release waivers he needed her to sign. He told her not to use her real name and to try to make it somewhat illegible. So she signed everything as Ariana Reyes in her worst handwriting. When she was finished, they stood up and shook hands. "Welcome to the flock," he said with a smile. And Ari smiled back and left the office. Cam was in the hallway waiting for her. "There's my little star. Come on, I'll show you to your new digs." She followed him up the back stairs. At the top, Cam opened the door with a flourish. "Welcome to the aviary," he announced, ushering her in. It was a studio apartment with a tiny kitchen to the right that was only a fridge and a counter with a sink. It didn't even have a stove, just a microwave and a hot plate. The furniture looked like they had gotten it all from different yard sales. There was an old trunk serving as a coffee table, and 3 different colored couches, seemingly from 3 different decades. Ari noticed that the place had a distinct mystery smell. She didn't mind, though. It was better than life on the L train. "Nobody calls it that, loser," said a voice from the green 1980s couch that faced a large flat-screen TV mounted on the far wall. "Shut your face, Leo. The aviary is an awesome name. Now turn around and greet your new roommate." Leo turned around and waved. Ari smiled, waving back. Leo looked to be around Cam's age. He wore a gray knit cap over his shaved head and black-rimmed hipster glasses. He had light brown skin and cinnamon-colored eyes that reminded Ari of Sadie. "Leo, this is Pipes. Pipes, this is Leo. He's our resident artist. He's the one that did all the murals downstairs. He makes the masks. I'll be done with yours in a day or so. I'm sketching it out now," Leo said, holding up his sketchbook. "Awesome, thanks. I love all your murals. You're really talented. But you don't have to call me Pipes. My name is Ari." Leo smiled, nodded, then went back to sketching and watching TV. Cam continued on with the tour, pointing to various spots in the open space. "That's my bed in the corner, by the bureau. Leo just sleeps on the pull-out couch over there. That door past the kitchen is the bathroom. And this," he said, walking over to an alcove on the left that was closed off by 2 colorful mismatched shower curtains hanging by a rope strung between the 2 walls. He dramatically opened them up to reveal a small futon bed in front of a couple windows and a small rickety bookshelf that had a desk lamp on top. "Is your very own private space. I had to throw it together on short notice, but you can jazz it up however you want. And this way you can get away from us hooligans." It was a bit underwhelming, but he was trying so hard to make her happy that she couldn't help but smile and be thankful. "It's great, Cam. Thank you." "Show her the roof," Leo said from the couch. Cam's eyes lit up. "Oh, yeah, the roof. Come with me, Pipes. You'll love this." He went over to one of the windows by his bed that led out to the fire escape. She climbed out after him and got up onto the roof. It was a large flat space enclosed by a waist-high parapet, filled with old lawn furniture, fold-out chairs, and card tables. They had rigged up strings of Christmas lights and garden lamps all around for when it got dark. "Sometimes we have small parties up here, but nothing too crazy or Hawk will kick us out. He's pretty strict about that kind of stuff. He lives in that apartment building over there." He pointed to a tall building about a block away. "He lives about halfway up in the apartment that faces the shop. It has a perfect view of the rooftop, so he spies on us sometimes." Still looking towards the apartment, he smiled. "Oh, look, Lucy's coloring by the window. She is the cutest 3-year-old ever. She has one of those little kid lisps where their R's sound like W's. Hawk's wife, Marissa, brings her by the store sometimes. But don't say anything about the aviary, okay? Marissa would pitch a fit if she knew Hawk was letting minors live upstairs, especially one as young as you." Ari nodded and pretended to zip her lips. She walked over to where Cam was standing and tried to see Lucy out the window, but it was too far for her to see. "Wow, you can really see her coloring?" she asked in amazement. "Yep. And if you amped me, I'd be able to see right through the wall as well." I was almost tempted to try and do it, just to see if she could learn to see him like him. But she hadn't figured out how to amp on purpose yet, so that experiment would just have to wait for now. She walked around to look at the view. They had a really great panoramic of the city. Wait till you see it around sunset. The view is magnificent, Cam promised. And that is the end of chapter 19. We did 18 and 19. Chapter 20 is next. But we shall end this very long video now. From a 2-page chapter to like a hour-long chapter. 250. Yeah, so we went through quite a few pages there. Quite a few. Alrighty. Before this video is any longer, peace out. See you on the chapter 20, next time. Fare thee well. Peace.